You, this is the law and the prophets, the gospel of the Lord. Lent brings a lot of lessons to us in the scriptures, especially through Matthew. He's always preaching a way of living. And in this first reading from the Old Testament, we see Esther, and they're being defeated by their enemies. And Queen Esther is in despair. She starts out very much like a victim. It says, Queen Esther, seized with mortal anguish, like she feels like she's dying, she turns to the Lord. There's a good example, teaching right there. When she felt like all of life was gone and over, she turned to the Lord and she prayed and beseeched the Lord. And at the end of this passage, she says, now come to my help. I'm an orphan. And she just keeps begging God to be there for her. And then this is what it says happens. Save us from the hand of our enemies. And she asks this final thing from the Lord. Turn our mourning into gladness and our sorrows into wholeness. I think that's a tremendous lesson. You know, I experience a lot of times in life that people, including myself, seem to love the role of being a victim and think it's not fair and I don't have what I want and why was this taken away from me or whatever the things, you know. It can be because of illness or a divorce or a death of someone that we love. And in the first place, we often, usually I'd say, end up feeling like a victim. And in the most classic way, we say things like, why God? Why me? And that's all right, as long as we don't stay there for too long, because it's a very unhealthy place psychologically and spiritually. If a person lives their life feeling like a victim, then they really are not recognizing any of God's grace or love being poured into them and over them, and any of this transformative love of God coming into their life. So Jesus gives some advice to that. He says, knock, and the door will be opened. Seek, and you will find. Ask, and you'll receive an answer. I like to say that we have spiritual ways of saying this. Sometimes people say, sometimes we ask God for what we want, but He gives us what we need. And I guess that's probably true in some way, but it also is, for me, a little folksy. What I think happens is that when we ask and we seek and we knock, sometimes what we come to is acceptance. So, for example, let's say somebody has a chronic condition. They say they develop diabetes, or they have to go on dialysis. And they're 3 times a week they're giving up 3 or 4 hours for dialysis. Do they want that? Of course not. What'll happen if they don't do it? They'll die. So they got to do it. So they start out maybe like a victim. Why me, Lord? Why take this from me? Why can't you take this from me? But sometimes when they ask enough and they dig in spiritually, what they come to is a place of acceptance. And this is a real gift. When we say, you know, this is who I am now. This is what I have. How will I live it and live it as fully as I can? When a person gets to acceptance, they're no longer a victim. They're fully alive again, fully alive. And in fact, when people get to that place of acceptance, they often become a model to others. Others see them go through suffering, but don't hear them complaining, saying, look at them, they're amazing. Today, I think Jesus is leading us to that pathway, leading us to a place where we can discover God's presence even in our struggles, our sorrows, our sadness, our pain. And we don't end up just licking our wounds, but we end up actually recognizing that perhaps there's even some gift in there, but most of all, the gift of acceptance, the gift of God's grace. Please stand. Trusting all our needs to God, let us offer our petition.